Hey climbers, and welcome back to the Treehouse. My name's Ree. This is the tarot tree, and in today's video I thought would just be like having a little sift through my collection and looking at the decks that really speak to that autumn fall energy. You know, we're in the thick of it now. The trees are starting to go golden and kind of red, and in my neck of the woods, you know, they're starting to kind of let go of their leaves. You know, the days are getting a little bit darker. You know, we're kind of pining for those sort of cozy sort of comforts in this hibernation season. And for me, like, my decks are no different to that. I do like to work seasonally. I really do like to use decks that match the energy of the season I'm in. I guess it's part of my practice, I guess, to help me feel grounded, to feel connected to, you know, Mother Earth, as it were. Sort of go with those seasons. By no means is it exhaustive, of course, you know, I'll pop a nice bright deck here and there, but overall I think it is nice to use decks that sort of fit where we're at in this sort of calendar, I guess. So yeah, I've sort of gathered a few together here like a little squirrel ready for hibernation. Oh, speaking of squirrels, I might have to insert some footage. I'm having a standoff with a pair of them outside my house because they're just crazy. I don't know what they're doing. They must have decided to bury all of their kind of nuts somewhere in my front garden, but they are causing havoc, like scaring me, jumping out on me, staring me out. And they're huge. Like, what are they feeding these? But I digress. Yeah, squirrels. Squirrels aside, let's have a look at my my little collection going on here. So yeah, let's put you lovely autumn card. It's from the what is this deck? Linescapes deck, I think, if anyone's interested. Pretty cool deck. It has seasonal cards, which I like. So yeah, let's put you away, Mr. Autumn, and let's see what decks fit you. So first up we have, it had to be here, and that is the Forhaxa. And I've actually been waiting for this season to kind of really use this deck, to be honest, because it wasn't gelling for me trying to use this in summer, I have to be honest. So I thought maybe I'll have to crack it out again come autumn, and so thus that is why it's here. You can see why. It's, you know, it's quite a dark deck. It's like a fae sort of fairy deck, you know. And it has all of these wonderful sort of autumnal colours running through it, you know, the sort of browns, the reds. That's going to be a theme we're going to see through here. Definitely aesthetically, I've picked these because they match the sort of weather, etc. You know, they got them dark undertones, almost a bit cozy, that sort of fiery sort of element going on. It's quite an introspective deck, and I do use, you know, there's a lot going on here. Kind of the seasons a bit for certain types of work as well. You know, if we look at the autumn season, what are the leaves doing? They're teaching us how to let go, right? What do we have to let go of? And this is, for me, I feel like this has scope to be more of a deep diver, so that's why it sort of fits this season. It's got that, you know, a deck that you take that time, that slower kind of pace. I always find the autumn season a bit of a slower pace of things, you know. Take that time to do that sort of work with your decks, the inner work, the reflection, deeper kind of work. But look, oh, how you can't get more. Look at this fox and the sort of red head there. I mean, although that could be spring because of the harvesting nature, just the color combinations are very autumnal for me. So yeah, that's first up is the Forhaxa. Even the backs, it's a beautiful deck by MJ Cullinane. So yeah, I'm hoping to get a bit more use out of her in this season. So yes, that's that. Next up, we have another one I haven't got too much use out of, and I'm hoping to kind of break that. And that is the Cosmic Slumber Tarot. Autumn allergies, well and truly in the thick of it. Now, some people might be a bit like, autumnal? Yes, definitely. Look at the colour palette for one. It's these oranges, these deep sort of, like, even the backs, look, that's very autumnal, right? You know, these purplies, these reds, these yellows. It's very, like, in its aesthetics and its kind of colour sort of combinations. It is quite a strange deck in terms of like almost like inverted sort of colors going on here. That's what I appreciate about it, and I do think it brings that sort of autumnal feel for sure. Again, what I quite like about this deck, it's very dreamy, hence Cosmic Slumber. I don't know about for anyone else. Maybe because it's like a hibernation period for a lot of kind of, you know, animals and whatnot. And for me, I almost feel like I want to hibernate during this season, you know. I have to be honest, autumn's not really my favourite season. When people say, oh, I can't wait for, I'm like, dang, no, I need spring to come back, I need life. Because I do start to slow down. Things become a bit hazy, a bit sleepy and dreamlike for me during this period of time, and when the weather starts, you know, changing, when we start getting darker days. And this deck really speaks to that for me, that sort of sleepiness, that dreaminess, that sort of kind of, I don't know if the word is hazy, but definitely like a dreamlike state of autumn. And autumn does feel like that way to me. Again, it's quite a contemplative deck. Look at this. It is very like dreamlike. The Justice card there, and you're just like this little figure. It's like you're stepping into these dreams. So it's good for doing that sort of inner work come autumn time, when you have that slower pace at which to do it. And yeah, I'm hoping I will get use out of this, because it's really not got much use in my collection so far. It's partly because I don't like this card stock, I have to be honest. I don't like Liminal's card stock very much. But yes, see if we can get past that. Look at that universe. That's such a beautiful card. Yeah, definitely. Look at the autumnal colours. You can't say it's not, guys. You can't. So yeah, that's the Cosmic Slumber. Okay, next up we have a rather charming deck that I got relatively recently, secondhand, and isn't this really cute? Look at that tea leaf reading. The seller sent it in this bag, which I really liked, and very charming. And again, we're going to see, not too dissimilarly to the Cosmic Slumber, it smells amazing as well. I can't really explain it. I don't know if it's like some sort of talcum powder kind of. It was taking me back to childhood, this deck, which is strange. But it's called the Bering Sea Tarot. It's an indie production. I'm not quite sure if it's still in print. It's in order, as you see, because I'm trying to kind of go through it and sort of understand it so far. But as you can see, again, those sort of inverted kind of quite autumnal fall colours, the reds, the yellows. It's got a lot going on. We've got this sort of harvesting sort of energy here in this as well. You'll see it a lot throughout. There's like these sort of nods to sort of like plants and vegetables, and obviously Empress here. We have the pomegranate. It's so that's something I always kind of associate with autumn. I don't know if anyone else, like I grew up going to a Catholic school, and we had something called a harvest festival all around about September, October times really, where, you know, you do these things and you'd collect lots of tinned food and create this big in my primary school, this big kind of pyramid of tinned food, and you're there like searching your cupboards, you know, all to give to charity and things like that. And obviously this is a harvesting type of year for anyone that does like growing and gardening, you know, for certain crops. You know, getting everything kind of put away for the winter and whatnot. And this deck, I don't know why, it sort of has that harvesting kind of vibe to me. I don't know, maybe it's because I'm seeing lots of plant and vegetable life in it, and, you know, mixed with the colours. You got these quite charming characters, you know, even this devil to a degree. And again, it's that whole colour palette of the reds, the oranges, the yellows, these sort of inverted sort of colours going on here, the purples and the reds. And I just thought, yeah, you know what, this definitely is quite autumnal, this, in its energy. I do look forward to kind of using it. It's very charming. Like I said, it's very like, you know, hand drawn, almost. Even the paper that the cardstock this is on, it almost feels like a watercolor kind of paper for anyone that's done painting of that nature. You can still see the pencil marks. So, you know, it's like, it's quite raw and like sort of unfinished. And I do get that vibe in autumn as well, this sort of rawness, you know, nature shows us, you know, all these colours, everything becoming stark again, going back to basics, shedding, and I quite like that. And even here, look, we can see the leaves sort of falling down in our sort of Nine of Pentacles there. So yeah, I do like that. It's a very interesting deck. I look forward to telling you guys how I get on with working with it. And I'm really glad I found it secondhand, because I do really like this artwork. And so yeah, that is the Bering Sea, the Tarot of the Bering Sea, I think. Personally, I think it's at the beringsea.etsy.com, so I'm sure that the artist might have a few decks actually. I don't know if any of them are in print at the moment, but it's worth checking out. I'll try and put links down if anyone's interested. But yeah, that was an eBay find, that was. What next? Okay, let's crack out the sort of the combo I've been loving so far this season. And first and foremost, let's go for the tarot, and that is my Terra Volatile, a very alchemical tarot, which I'm really loving at the moment, and that is upside down. Again, a lot going on with this deck, a bit of a deep dive deck, a bit of a deck that, you know, deserves a little bit of contemplation, to be honest, but again is in these very sort of autumn colours. I find this sort of muted sort of greens, like the deep greens, browny sort of colours, aesthetic, reds, purples. We've got going through this quite a lot. You know, it's not too bright, it's not too in your face, anything like that. It's got this very, like, you know, autumnal colour palette to me. And again, like I said, a very alchemical deck, which, you know, I feel like, of course, in every season we can become aware of the elements, for sure. You know, there's something about autumn, that transitionary period, that really makes you, well, for me anyway, really makes me become very aware of certain sort of elemental things going on in our environment. You know, all these sort of changes in weather. You know, we're going from life to death. Everything become, you know, the heat to the cold, the light to the dark. Like, it's very this, you know, again, it's the transition. And I always feel like alchemists and things like alchemy are always about that sort of mod of changing one thing into another, right? And autumn speaks to that energy as well for me. Definitely, you know, we got these darker cards as well. We're heading into this hibernation, darker times, and it's this sort of preparation. And, you know, it's good to do kind of work on that, you know, especially in autumn for me. Like, I don't know if anyone else here suffers from like SAD, like SAD, seasonal affective disorder, or gets like a bit low during the kind of darker seasons. Get that vitamin D, that does make a difference, and get out in the sunlight if you can, on a practical kind of advice. But it's kind of good to have decks to help you sort of like sit into that energy, I think, a bit more, and do some work on that. And this has definitely been one of them for me. It's been quite profound as we've gone into autumn for me, this deck. And I shall tell you what I've paired it with, which is another, and I actually think this might be my only kind of, you know, straight autumnal oracle, and that is the Illuminated Earth Oracle. This combination, whew, guys, I've been loving it. I spoke a little bit about it on my Instagram recently. If anyone wants to check me out over there, if you're on there, it's the Tarot Tree, double E on the D. A very, very elemental oracle, this. Not one I found easy to work with initially. I think I've said this before, it's no secret. I thought it would be very intuitive for me. Look at that. It didn't end up being that way, and I've had to mix and match it with a few tarot in order to kind of really get its deep sort of elemental wisdom out. And I find if I pair these together, it seems to work very well, and I think it's quite poetic. One's an alchemical tarot, one is an elemental, you know, the alchemy, the alchemist of the Terra Volatile, drawing out the sort of unruly elements from the Illuminated Earth. They even speak very interesting in terms of, you know, these sort of lines and the symbols going on. You'll find them popping up quite a lot when you do reads. And it's just been all very fascinating and just very, very cool to use. And you see these sort of muted, darker, deeper colours in the Illuminated Earth as well. They match very well aesthetically. Let's give the Illuminated Earth its time and shine. You know, taken as, again, you know, back in touch with that very elemental kind of part of life. The nature aspect here is very strong. The sort of bare bones of things, you know. The natural world is very strong in this deck for sure. This sort of sacred geometry as well, almost. And yeah, I feel like this is definitely the winter fall of these two decks. Because there's another one, isn't it? The Faceted Garden, which I look at the colour palette, and that is definitely more spring summer for me. So yeah, the Illuminated Earth, I haven't really been using it through the spring summer period, but I found that now was the time to crack it out. And definitely it's because it matches that autumn energy, definitely, not only in its color palette but in kind of what it's speaking about as well, the sort of messages, the deep kind of work that is kind of should be used for, in my opinion. Not should, I shouldn't use that word, but like that I find it helpful to use it with. So yes, and following on from that yeah, great deck pairing, that Terra Volatile and the Illuminated Earth. Another fall autumn favorite has got to be the Blood Moon. Again, look at the color palette. You know what I'm talking about, right? These rich greens, browns, reds, darker sort of elements, speaking to this sort of weather that we're kind of experiencing here, anyone that's in the autumn season now. This deck was the other deck I found that worked very well with the Illuminated Earth. If we can see, grab them, put them together, and you can see. I would love a borderless Blood Moon. I really would. Not that I hate the borders or anything, but I just feel like it will really open up these images. You can see we do get some pinks and kind of blues, more in the kind of cup suit in the Blood Moon, but it still speaks to me more of this sort of darker seasons, really and truthfully. And it is like more of a shadow work deck, and I again, you could do shadow work whenever. It might actually be a shout to do it in a more brighter times, but for me, again, it speaks seasonally for me. Sometimes this is the time where I feel like a slower pace, I want to hibernate, and this is the time for shadow kind of work a bit more for me, to be honest, if I can kind of tolerate it. So the Blood Moon definitely comes out for this period, and yeah, that's why it's definitely an autumnal deck for me. Again, I use it all year round. Like I said, it's just not like you know, the be all end all. They can only be used in this season, but they definitely speak to that autumn season for me, even in these sort of dreamy kind of ones as well. Oh, definitely this one, this sort of Decay of the Devil. Looking at attachment in autumn is quite kind of an interesting thing to do, to be honest. When you've got all the kind of elemental energy around you trying to help you with like letting go energy, it's good to tap into that with your kind of practice, I think. So yeah, and the transformation here of the snake as well, very autumnal. So that's the Blood Moon. So I mixed quite a few there. Hopefully it made sense. You got a little bit of a showcase of everything. Okay, what have we got next then? Okay, we have my very first mod, deck mod, and that is the Bauer Tarot, which is now no longer a tarot. I was going to say unfortunately, but it's not unfortunate, because for me this never really worked as a tarot. It didn't make sense how it was created. So instead I just lobbed everything off, and now I have a story kind of telling oracle, in my opinion, and it works so much better for me intuitively. And fairy tales, you know, more of the darker side of fairy tales, I would say, sometimes in John Bauer's sort of, although they can be quite dreamy as well. There's definitely this autumnal energy just from the sort of colour palette again. This sort of like, you know, dark sort of undertones going on, but also, you know, you get these little sheds of light going through this deck too. But fairy tales, they do, this makes sense, they do speak to me more of this time of year. Like, is it something about being sort of lost in a forest, and that sort of, you know, being something that happens in these darker sort of months? Is it something about being told fairy tales more so around this time of year? People gathered around fires, sort of ancestrally talking about these stories, telling these folk tales, or even me as in childhood when I'm being, you know, reading more because I can't go out to play, or being read to more, you know, and we can't be outside as late. So there is definitely something about fairy tales that I link to this time of year, because it is quite a magical time of year, autumn. It is quite, I think it's transitionary kind of energy speaks to that. Ooh, stepping into the other, you know, and fairy tales and like enchanted sort of forests and things like that, they speak to that as well for me. So that's why it's been really nice to have this out for this season, and to have modded it so I can actually make use of it for this season. I've really been enjoying it. It actually is speaking to me like very well, like intuitively, which I was worried that it wouldn't. I thought, oh, I'm gonna have to sit with this deck for a while, which is again why I chose to do it for this season, because I will tend to do that more so, you know, when I'm not, you know, going out and about as much per se, and I want to be indoors and I want to be cozy. So yeah, this fairy tale energy, very, very, very autumnal for me. And kind of a step on from that, then go from fairy tales kind of still into fairy tales, well, it basically is, and that is we're going into the Enchanted Forest, or the Forest of Enchantment Tarot. This beautiful bag is made by Sandy at Exploring Tarot. I'm sure all of you know her, so check her shop out. Rowan Leaf Creations, the little hedgehog. She also gifted me this deck, which was really, really lovely of her, bless her. So yes, and I've been waiting for a time to really dive into it more, and again, back to that fairy tale energy, here we are. Why not this season, you know? Stepping into that enchanted forest is very much like stepping into autumn for me, you know? It's a wonderful, it's got this really kind of cozy sort of feel to it, this deck, magical kind of feel, stepping into another world, and we kind of are in this transition through autumn, stepping into another kind of world, you know. Everything is starting to change, everything looks different, everything feels different, you know, the air's different, the sky's different, the heat is different, and we want to do different things, and you know, exploring an enchanted forest has got to be up there. I love this one. There's so much to draw upon in this, you know, this Two of Pentacles and this troll under the bridge and this guy like willy-nilly walking. I love it. And yeah, check out Sandy's deep dive series on this, because it's been very, very helpful. There's a great book of this as well. Again, these decks that have really good guidebooks and kind of take a little bit of study, I feel like autumn, winter sort of a good time for doing that. For me, because of that, you know, for me, I want to slow down when it gets colder anyway. I'm not, you know, being as sociable usually, so and that's why I kind of like saving these decks for that. But they speak to the energy almost just in how they're drawn as well. Again, another sort of colour palette that's very autumnal for me. Look at these sneaky foxes. So yeah, definitely check this one out if you haven't got it. It's a very interesting book. I really do like, is it Linnea Weatherstone? She writes very well. There's a lot of numerology throughout this deck, which is pretty cool as well, the way the book is broken down. So if that's something you're interested in, check that out. So staying in the realm of woods and enchanted forests, this wonderful box, Homes. If I can just take some stuff out that I've left in there I didn't realise. The wonderful Wildwood Tarot, a deck I've been saving for this season as a deep dive deck. I've been doing this deliberately. I've been waiting, you know, to start using this deck in this season specifically, because I feel it speaks to this energy. It just didn't fit trying to deep dive this in summer for me, because it's that very raw, very elemental, very kind of, oh, there's a lot going on here, and it does deserve study, this deck, and I do feel like I may be doing a deep dive series on this, because it might help me to kind of do it on here with you guys. So yeah, let me know. As you can see, it's still in order, because I haven't worked with this deck really. I've had a look through, and I've had a little bit of a sort of reflect on some of the cards, and there's a lot of changes, and you know, at first you might be like, how does that make sense? But really and truthfully, as you kind of dive deeper into it, you really do kind of appreciate the sort of different spin on things. And it's really getting you in touch with, you know, especially Celtic and kind of Druid sort of knowledge, I would say this deck speaks to, which again is something like I'm kind of studying as a wider kind of thing during this season as well. I had hoped to have already gone on my trip to Ireland, but unfortunately that's got postponed at the moment. But it'd be nice to still be in touch with this sort of part of my heritage, as I am Irish predominantly. So yes, this deck, back to it being autumnal, look at that, the sun of life. Colour palette again, this woods energy, this animal energy, all the quartz are animals, as you see, which is going to be a bit tricky for me until I really improve my animal knowledge, I think. And I thought I had quite good animal knowledge, but alas, maybe not. But yeah, I really do look forward. It just has that sort of fall and into winter sort of energy for me. Very raw, this deck, I want to say. It's quite animated as well, which I feel like sometimes autumn and stuff going into winter can get a bit volatile, and that sort of raging energy of like kind of having to go through this change and this transition. And yeah, wildwood, hence that name. So yeah, I shall be going through that, another autumnal deck, but a deep dive for this season. I think that would probably be one of my main deep dive decks for this season, for sure. What else do we want to speak to? Oh, I've got to get it out. It's an all-rounder for me, like all year round. But I have been loving it. I really have been cracking it out more this season, and that is the Lord of the Rings deck. I think as Mariana says, from Mariana Mass Books, and like Mariana does tarot, like it's a brown deck. She described decks that she loves as sort of brown decks, and it's this very brown kind of colour palette, which is very autumnal to me. But I think mainly why I've kind of brought it out this season more so than usual again, although this is a year-long deck for me, it's quite comforting. And this is a sort of season for sort of, you know, for comfort food, comfort TV shows, you know, staying in, being a bit of a homebody. God, everything's going upside down. And it has that feel to me, you know. Lord of the Rings is a very comforting kind of movie for me. It is something I want to watch on a dreary sort of cold day with a hot drink, you know, or when I'm feeling a bit low because it's dark out, you know. It does have that sort of element to it, and again, this very like these brownish kind of aesthetic tones definitely for me speaks to autumn. Even the backs look. So yeah, I couldn't leave it out, and I have been using it again more so, like way more frequently than I had been through the spring and summer. So yeah, I had to give that a nod. The wonderful Lord of the Rings deck, the best Lord of the Rings deck I think I've seen on the market. So check it out, it's on Etsy. Anyone who's a fan, I doubt you'll be disappointed. It is a combination of both the books and the movies, so if you're a fan of both, it is should be up your alley. Next, maybe a bit of a weird one for some, but it does speak to autumn for me, the sort of bougie glamorous side of autumn. And that is the Victorian romantic. What can I say about this deck? You know what, it's going to go back to that old tone. I keep saying that word, I keep saying, and I'm becoming very aware of how much I've been saying in this video, and that is the color palette. I seem like a interior fucking designer or something, the way I'm talking like this. Changing rooms, boy. Or Extreme Makeover. Remember that show? Oh my gosh, if someone would knock my house down. Can we just take a moment to sort of look at the difference between British TV and American TV? Like, our one we had back in the 90s into early 2000s was something called Changing Rooms, where neighbours would go and decorate each other's room. But the best thing was the tea was when you could tell that they really hated what their neighbour had done and they actually had to still live next to this person. It was funny. But you guys had Extreme Makeover, where, you know, not your neighbour kind of giving your room a lick of paint. This is like, we're knocking your whole house down and rebuilding it for you. And that was the difference. But I'm going off on a tangent here, but yeah. In Victorian Romantic, why is it autumnal to me? I think there's just a lot of rich gold, lots of rich reds going through this deck, that to me, and it seems like we're not seeing any of these. We're seeing a lot more spring-like and water-like cards so far. Oh dear. Maybe it's not. Maybe I sort of jumped the gun with this one. But when I looked at it, I just did think of it as being like that richness of autumn. That sort of, you know, them deep reds, them golds. That's sort of how beautiful autumn is when you go out and you see all the leaves turning red. You know, I walked out today and I saw all the vine leaves that someone has in the house near me, or all over their wall, all going from green to red. Like, it's beautiful, the richness of it. And you know, it's just, it's scrumptious when you see that outside, right? You see all those beautiful changes in colours. And this it has that richness for me. It really does. Although it can speak to a few different seasons, for me it speaks more to autumn than any other. I don't fully, again we're seeing all these cards that look like spring now. I might have to no, I'm standing my ground. I'm standing my ground. Do you know what I mean? Anyone else have that deck? This deck, do you know what I mean about it being a bit autumnal because of these deep colours and the sort of richness of it? Tell me if you know what I'm saying, if it makes sense to you, because I'm starting to doubt myself as I'm going forward now. But no. Yeah, it has that. It's the deep reds, sort of richness of it. It's definitely... It's been nice to get this out in autumn. I didn't want to be too precious about this deck, even though it's probably my most expensive deck. But I have found that I wasn't using it, and I was like, oh no, I didn't want that to happen. So it's been nice to crack it out this season. So that's my Victorian Romantic, which by the cards that came up there looked like a bit of a stretch. But I know you get what I mean. Hopefully you do. The box is very autumnal anyway. Let's just like leave it at that. Another deck that I'm on my way to modding, because now I've got the bug. And I'd always put it in the spring and summer deck, but recently I've been looking at it and thinking, oh, this could be an autumnal deck as well. And that is the Llewellyn. And I don't know if it's because I'm putting it in my sort of Celtic sort of study sort of decks or something, potentially. Oh, I've just realised I had another deck I could put in here, which is the Celtic Wisdom, but my goodness, it'd be too much to try and get it out now. But there's something about the way light is painted in this deck. I've said this many times. It's this mottled kind of light, which does speak to spring to me, but it also speaks to autumn for me a bit as well. And God, maybe this speaks to both, really. I think when I give this the old trim, I'll be it'll be more clear to me what this is. But I do want to use it for this season because I do want to pair it with the John Bauer. Again, you see these sort of reds and yellows coming through. This, like, be dancing around the fire, all the leaves. Yeah, you know what, it does speak to both, but I do want to use it this autumn season. Let me know, what do you think? It's more of a spring, summer, or autumn kind of? I don't necessarily think I would say winter, but, you know, an autumnal deck. Either way, it is very beautiful. At the moment, I'm just deciding whether to kind of mod it completely, take everything off, or just keep the bottoms. So, yeah, I guess I could always do the bottoms first, and then if I don't want that, I can crop that off. But yeah, I do feel like the borders sort of, they mute it down for me. And the size of the cards is just a bit weird for my tiny hands, so I think I'll get much more use out of it after giving it a little crop. So yeah, that's the Llewellyn. I do think it has the autumnal energy. It does speak to autumn for me. Definitely in some of those cards there that we saw. And last but not least, I was thinking of doing a spooky season kind of picks, but I'll be honest with you, autumn, Halloween, yeah, it's never really been like a big thing for me, if I'm honest. Never been my favourite time of year. I don't know if it's because in like the UK we don't do too much for it. It looks like absolute, like, you know, joy in parts of America and Canada for sure. It looks a lot of fun, and you know, but for me, I just feel like I always just like, oh, it's cold, it's dark. I'm not about this life. Just let me have Easter, you know. So spooky season decks, Halloweeny kind of decks, like they're not really like my kind of vibe, to be honest. And maybe that will change. Like maybe you guys will convince me, because I have seen some cool ones. But so I thought I'll put this in here, and it's a new one to my collection. It's called the Nameless One, a tarot and oracle. It's by the same creator who did the Children of Lithar, who, you know, I need that deck. I need it. I want that deck. I've been looking for that deck, but to find it in this in the UK for a decent price, like it's a lot of shipping at the moment, unfortunately. So I was trying to find it secondhand, and I found this one secondhand. This is why I picked it up, because this would have been ridiculous to try and to buy from the creator and ship here. It would be like way over like 130 odd pound or something like that. So yeah, I found this secondhand, like, and I seriously think it definitely fits this sort of autumnal kind of season. Look at these colors again, you know, these very rich sort of reds, purples, and it's got that spooky kind of vibe to it as well. It has that sort of Halloween kind of vibe, because this is a kind of deck I think if you wanted to use for spell work. I don't really, you know, I wouldn't describe myself as a witch really. It's not something I've dived in too much at this point in time. So I don't really do spells and rituals and things like this. This deck can be used for that. I just found because each has a sigil. As you can see, these are sigils. I just found the artwork very it draws you in. It really does. It's very kind of emotive. It's got that darkness to it, but that alluring darkness, if that makes sense. Which sort of speaks to this sort of, especially as we're going into that Halloween vibe, this end of October coming up. I just thought, oh, it's something about me, just like, oh, I gotta get this, and really have a little bit of a deep dive of it. Again, this is a deck that I don't think is easy to kind of read off the bat. I find the major arcana is amazing. Like I can definitely tell which is which, especially as I've just sort of familiarized myself with them, and I like that. But the courts are a bit difficult to sort of differentiate, which could be problematic for me, I can't lie. And also some of the minors, and then we have a whole, like, this is like the oracle deck side of it that I kind of take out. So it does warrant that sort of study through this season for sure, and it definitely seems like a more cold, dark weather kind of study deck for me. But it is just so beautiful. It does speak to this season, this sort of spooky tail end of autumn for me. So I'm looking forward to giving it a bit of a go. Here we get into the swords now. The minors aren't too bad actually, and if you go by the dots you can kind of guess, like obviously there's no numbers or anything or namings, that's a 3, etc. 4 of swords, the gravestone. See what I mean? It's a bit of a spooky, you know, a bit of a macabre sort of element to this deck. But it's the colour palette again, for me, is very autumnal, you know, quite introspective as well. So I thought I'd pop it in there, and just to kind of showcase it as well to any of you that are interested in it. See how it's sort of kind of, there we go, here the quartz, you can see quite difficult, you know, there's not much to go off them, and they look quite similar. A bit creepy, these masks, aren't they? A bit Zelda Majora's Mask going on there. But yeah, look at the wands, look at that, very autumnal. So yeah, that's the Nameless one, Tarot and Oracle by Gia Hunt. So guys, I think that is it. I think that's it for all my autumnal decks. Let me know what you think. It's been really cool seeing some of you guys like put your full decks up as well, because I do like working seasonally, and it's really nice to have decks that have that energy and embody that energy. It's so cool that we have them. Like, we have decks that kind of embody elemental energy, you know, water, fire, earth, air, etc. It's also nice to sort of look at them seasonally, I think, as well. I know a few of you are quite like green witches as well, which has been really interesting to see in your practice, because you definitely follow this sort of Wheel of the Year calendar, and it's really been it's been really insightful seeing how your decks work with it, with that sort of practice as well. So yeah, let me know if you work seasonally, what some of your favorite autumn kind of fall decks are. Definitely just list them below, or if you have like a video, direct me to it, or make one for your channel. I'll love to see it. So yeah guys, thanks for being here. I hope you're enjoying whatever season you're in right now. Some of you, you know, we are not in autumn with us lot, and then I might have to catch a plane to come be where you're at. No, I'm joking. It's all part and parcel of life, right? You have to deal with these transitioning periods, and like I said, there's some beautiful things about autumn. But yeah, I hope you're doing well wherever you are, and thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.